You guys, we almost there. We at the stretch. One more week. There you go. There's my faces. I look forward to you guys every week. Awesome. All right, guys. Good evening. Welcome back to the Small Business Educational Series. As you all have grown to know, we will go through our housekeeping rules, of course. Keep your audios muted unless open forum or you have questions. Encourage you to keep your videos on, but totally understand if you decide not to. Also encourage you guys to be engaged with our guest speaker and as well as today's conversation. Ask any questions throughout the presentation and or whenever our presenter suggests, and of course we'll collect it at the end of the presentation. And then at about 5 o'clock, of course, we'll take a 5-minute stand-up break or 5-ish, depending on where our presenter Dan is within his presentation. For our agenda, we will go through our attendance. If you haven't done so already, just drop your name in the chat box so that Chanel can count you for today's attendance. And then we'll go around our virtual room for introductions. And as always, we will act as though Dan from Walsh-Fluor has the perfect contract opportunity in his hands for us. And we want to introduce ourselves as to why he should hand it our way. Today we have Dan Smilio. I may have butchered that. I know, I'm sorry. It looks simple, but
one of those names you can't read. You have to just, it rhymes with armadillo, Smililo.
Smillo. Fair enough. Thank you, Dan. Who's going to present to us on technology benefits to your business. And then, of course, we'll open the floor for Q&A. So without further ado, we'll go around the room for our virtual introductions. And I'll go up in the order of the screen. And we have Curtis Harmon up first.
Hello, everyone. Curtis Harmon with Fidelity Plumbing. We're a plumbing contractor located in Lake County, Illinois, but we service all of Illinois. We are certified as an MBE, BEP, and DBE plumbing contractor, and we're union with Local 130.
Thank you, Curtis. Marina? And I keep saying Marina, and I know it isn't, but that's the name that's on the
No worries. Thank you. All the Manny and Garces contractors. Hello, everybody. I hope you're having a good afternoon.
Thank you. Love the energy, too. Trey?
Hello, everyone. Trey Kraut with QRSE. We are a professional services firm providing construction management services along with design engineering services. We are based out of Hawaii, and I'm starting the office here in Illinois. We are a DBE certified in Illinois.
Thank you. And Melissa?
Oh, hello, good evening. I'm Melissa Fuller, the owner of MTC Properties One, and we are a real estate development company. We purchase and acquire vacant lots and build structures, and our focus is modular structures, residential and commercial.
Awesome. Thank you, Melissa. Beatrice, I know you were multitasking. Are you available for us now? Okay, awesome.
Hello, everyone. My name is Beatrice Steele with Lawn Care Maven. We are an eco-friendly lawn care and landscaping company here in the Chicagoland area. We service the Woodlawn and its surrounding areas.
Awesome. Thank you, Beatrice. Mike?
Hello, I'm Mike with Allstate Concrete Cutting. We're a concrete cutting, coring, wall sign, demolition business, and we are certified in the city of Chicago, MBE, and BEPD, and also a DBE for the state of Illinois.
Thank you, Mike. And Forrest? There you go.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Forrest Brown, and I'm a general contractor with Construction by Silverline. We specialize in residential remodeling and light construction, like commercial construction. And we are WBE, MBE with the City of Chicago.
Awesome. Thank you, Forrest. Divi?
Hi, everybody. Divi Logan of Bridges to Rails. I've made some great new connections in the transportation world today, and it's good to see everybody, and let's keep learning. There's a lot to do out there.
That's it. Thank you, Divi. And then Javier?
Hello, everyone. This is Javier Cadena, PM at Studio ARQ. We are a Chicago-based architectural firm. We are MBE certified.
And then Chanel, for Dan's sake.
Hello, everyone. My name is Chanel Harmon. I'm the coordinator of small business development and outreach. I work with Jamie Neely.
Awesome. And I am Jamie Neely. Thank you, guys. Last week, we talked about workforce. We had Workforce Works with us last week. Kind of went through, gave you guys some ideas of hiring tips. What's the old saying? Hire fire fast, hire slow, fire fast, right? So think about what the company needs, what the roles are, what the responsibilities are, who would be the right person. I believe Ruth gave us some mention about, just hiring for not necessarily all about the skill set, but considering if they're manageable, if, can they learn quickly? Do they have other transferable skill sets that this role can pull out or pull from? Did anyone take a look at the prevailing wages link or regulations? Good. So I know this will be interesting. Any juicy stories about hiring and firing or any of your workforce experience? How you onboard people, how you onboarded during COVID? No?
I can say something.
Yeah, please, Trey.
Something our president is really into is assessments. And so she started working with a company called Wiley's, and basically they provide not a recruiting, but I would say after you've identified a candidate, kind of a screening of that person to see if they actually fit the position that you're looking for. We've been using it now. I think we've done about 15 employees just to kind of see where they match along with people that we're recruiting out of U of I. So it's just another tool if you wanted to add to your toolbox. If you're interested, please feel free to reach out to me. Personally, it's very new for us. I'm going to be taking the class to kind of learn how to really use the tool coming up in November. But that is just something we started using as a small company just to help us try to vet good employees to make sure they're a good match. So it's just something we've started. I don't know if it had anything to do with COVID, but that's just something we do.
And you said about how long have you been using it?
About 2 months.
Okay,
maybe
so
3
too
months.
soon to determine if it works well, right?
I will say, as far as our current employees, so we've used it on our current employees just to say, okay, this is a good engineer, or this is a good manager. And it's matched up pretty well. They've been doing this for years, and they've got thousands of case studies. I know for the people we're interviewing, it's kind of helped us narrow our decision. Just to say, hey, this person scored really high for the position we're trying to fill. Not to say that's how we're only going to be hiring, but we have looked at other people that have scored low in positions, and we're going to track eventually how it turns out and say, okay, this was a good indicator, and it told us not to hire this guy, and we still hired him, and it became a problem. So just something we're starting to use.
Awesome, good insight. I look forward to hearing additional updates in the future. Does anyone else use any other kind of vetting platforms or softwares?
What was the name of that tool he was referring to?
Yeah, it's called PXT Select.
Okay, thank you.
Awesome. Any other questions or comments regarding last week's workforce discussion? All righty, well, we will dive right into it. Today we have Dan to talk about technology benefits to your business. And then I am going to stop sharing my screen and then you can dive right in.
Thanks, Jimmy. Perfect. So to preface this conversation, I was actually in a training that I did earlier this week. And the critique on that training was I was like a college professor educating kindergartners on a type of tool out there. So feel free to, raise your hands, ask questions, stop me midstream. The whole preface between my presentation is more on the process of technology and the implementation in organizations. At Walsh, we have some very unique standards and protocols when we do adopt technology. A lot of that revolves around security, the process, the people, everything in there. So I'm going to start really discussing about the industry as a whole, where we've come, where we're heading, what Walsh kind of does as a whole, and our procedures, and then end with more of a rationalization of how to view technology, how to assess the technology, and how to implement the technology. This goes into a really in-depth presentation. I believe you guys share these PowerPoints. Feel free to share these PowerPoints. There's a lot in the notes and a lot in the text between questions and comments, thinking about what we should ask when we're looking towards technology, to actual use cases of developing procedures, developing kind of pilot checklists for your organization before you really adopt or utilize technology. So without further ado, share my screen. Everybody can hear me fine, correct? Perfect. Can you see my screen? Let me make sure give me 1 second. Is it sharing PowerPoint or the actual presentation?
The PowerPoint.
Okay. See the presentation now?
Yep, there we go.
Okay. So let me go back a couple slides here. So a little bit about myself. My name's Dan Smolillo. Like I said, Smolillo rhymes with armadillo. It's not important here, but it's always kind of the golden. No one can ever pronounce my last name, too many O's and L's. I'm the Director of Process and Innovation here at the Walsh Group. I've been at the Walsh Group for about 12 years. My focus is around operations. So I oversee kind of all of our technology and innovation through HR and payment processing and invoice processing to selection of field tools and protocols out in the field. So somewhat a jack of all trades, master of none, if you will. Really experienced. My background was in civil and environmental engineering. Went to the University of Cincinnati, started out boots in the mud. Was a project engineer doing all sorts of things from quality control up to superintendent running projects and scopes of work. So I really had a good understanding of the full workflow of kind of the construction industry as a whole, from project development, design and pursuit, estimating, all the way up to kind of operational excellence. So construction technology as a whole, our industry is evolved. Some may say for the good, some may say for the bad. What you're seeing right now on the screen is kind of this interconnected web of BS, for a lack of better, all the things that we need to do and manage nowadays on our construction sites, from project schedules to design management to document management to quality control on site to compliance management to material management. This interconnected web really gives us a definition of today and our project management and our construction management world and ecosystem. The good thing that this shows is where there is somewhat disruption. So you're seeing in these like colored boxes, you can see, supply chain management is helping evolve how we handle materials, material marketplaces, to artificial intelligence, allowing for more predictive analytics, machine learning, and deep learning. So we could become safer, we could become more compliant, we could become a more quality contractor, down to robotic automation. So actually having robots out there performing tasks that are at times dangerous to employees, to repetitive to employees, to 3D printing. 3D printing is taking off. Dubai just completed the world's largest 3D printed building just recently. So there is disruption coming into our sector. And again, a lot of good things are coming out of this, but disruption at times makes us uneasy, because if we're not prepared for it, it will disrupt how we work and how we operate as a whole. So really here is where Walsh sits. Our 5 core principles is being the builder of choice, the employer of choice, focusing on safety, quality, and really at the end of the day, profitability. And why I include profitability, some people might scowl at that profitability shouldn't be a mission statement. But at the end of the day, profitability is important, because if we can't drive profitability, it's hard to innovate. It's hard to drive value for our employees, for our owners that we're building for, down to the subcontractors and vendors that work for us, because that profitability gets reinvested back into how we work. And at the bottom of all this, we see technology. Technology has kind of spun this web into everything that we do. Just at the kickoff of this conversation, we were talking about hiring platforms. We have hiring platforms that we utilize. We started playing around with removing people's names from resumes for unintentional bias. We've gotten smarter with how we hire. We've gotten smarter to make people that really should be hired shine through sometimes of those issues that people catch on their resumes, and they don't like that. So we've leveraged technology to automate and make that process smarter. Down to employee of choice, learning where our employees want to work, understanding the values, being able to trend our employees on their success, their education, their training, and their development. So as you can see, there's kind of this picture. Technology is really disrupting us as a whole, as an organization, and really as an industry. And we're in this as a journey. We didn't just decide that we're going to start using technology and throw it into here. We've kind of come up with a holistic approach. And one of the reasons behind that was because we started to see these silos occur. One project was using drones, another one was using 3D printing, another one was using robotics. Walsh at its core is 22 regional offices all across North America, anywhere from 3,000 to 8,000 fully salaried employees, 10 to $20,000 or 20,000 laborers, and hourly employees across our organization. So that means a lot of innovative things going on across an organization, but that also means a lot of silos. And technology in itself has caused this issue. Everything is becoming siloed of knowledge sharing, educational resources, down to the data that all of this produces. So what we started to do is really focus on, didn't mean to go too fast, is really focusing on the process of adopting technology rather than just trying to throw technology at a problem. So where we're at today, 2005, we'll paint a little picture. iPad and iPhone were just being released. There were 5 construction applications out on the Apple Store. Today, there's over 2,000 different applications out there for the construction space. That goes anywhere from a small little calculator all the way up to 360 photos, machine learning, down to new and ever evolving contractors that are coming out. Over to the right, this was showing back in 2018, all the different startups that entered the space. 2018, there was $400 million that entered VC funding into our industry. What that means is Silicon Valley is starting to kind of sniff at what we're doing, and they want a chunk of the pie. In the US alone, we're a $17 trillion network, and they want a slice of that. So at its core, the construction industry has a lot of waste, and technology feels that they can solve all their problems by providing us with technology. So where do we start at Walsh, and how do we start at Walsh? Well, at Walsh, we start with the people. It starts with who we hire, who we employ, who we assign to projects, how they work with our projects and our project management teams, and understanding what their issues are, what their successes are, so we can start to correlate their pros and cons to technology that we can adopt to the processes that we need to adopt on there. So once we understand our personnel, we can start to evolve the processes and procedures. And this goes down to our ownership as well as our design team. On our PM, it's a design build project. Stantec is our designer, and the CTA is our owner. And when we first started off this project, we had about a year where a couple employees, all they did was map out process and procedures. Start at point A, end at point D, and all the different variables that happened in between. We never discussed technology yet. We were just trying to understand the workflows and the processes and procedures we needed to develop to have success in everything that we were doing, from pay app, design review, non-conformance reports, to punch list closing out. We had to develop these processes to really give us a picture of what we needed to accomplish. We also took into effect what was contractually required of us as an organization. We looked at our contract with the CTA, understanding their platform of choice was eBuilder. So we had to build our knowledge set around there. It gave us kind of that starting point. From there, we were able to develop our technology stack. So working with our designers, we knew that we were utilizing these tools as our CAD solutions, from Bentley solutions to Autodesk solutions. From there, again, going back to the process, we had to understand how did we have to connect these products and where we had risk. And where that risk comes into play is right now in the CAD industry, the computer-aided design industry, there's somewhat silos of products. Bentley is a kind of product of choice for civil and infrastructure projects, where Autodesk is more towards buildings. And on this project, we had a unique problem where we used both. And translation between Autodesk Suite and Bentley Suite isn't a one-to-one solution. So part of the design thing, we had to make sure we were meeting all the objectives of the owner without missing any data, without missing anything in that translation process. So again, understanding our people, our ownership, our design, mapping out the process, and leveraging technology. So where we at Walsh start with our people. Again, I mentioned we have anywhere from 13,000 to 25,000 employees across laborers and salaried employees. So that's a pretty large net, and it's very hard to understand everything that's going on a day-to-day basis. So at Walsh, we have construction technology managers. They sit within our regional offices. There are BIM technicians, there are 3D modelers, there are drone pilots, there are technology savvy project engineers on projects. These individuals help formulate what we call our construction technology forum. It is a forum of individuals, all volunteer, all additional hours. They get together and we share those success stories. So as I mentioned previously about the silos, these individuals work to share those best practices or try and solve the problems that we're facing on a day-to-day on our projects. It helps us develop our knowledge set and our knowledge database that we can share with other projects, pursuits, and regional offices to be more successful. A lot of this stems and starts from entrepreneurship. And I'm not saying they're going out and starting a business or starting a new company. They're out there testing these things, trying these things out, keeping their nose to the grindstone and understanding what their project needs are and what solutions are out there. We keep a pretty good pulse on the technology that's out there in the market. A lot of us do future trending and forecasting and assessments, but the individuals on our projects are our best asset. They know what the problems are. They know what we need to do to accomplish them, to remove those problems. So that entrepreneurial nature enables them to kind of understand and provide value to us. So these individuals are extremely beneficial. We kind of have a no dumb questions with them. They're able to ping me at any time, work with our IT department and ask these questions. Hey, can we try this? Can we facilitate this? Can we understand this? Because technology is somewhat of a beast. As you saw when I was mentioning earlier about the $400 million investment, it's evolving. Today's update, I like to say, is tomorrow's legacy. So what we're used to today and working on today might not exist tomorrow or might not exist a year from now. So ever evolving and ever understanding our process and procedures are something that is very important to us. So moving on to the process, what I mentioned, what do we do? What do we need to do? How do we do it? What are our expectations? So these are some of the questions that go into how we're mapping out the process. This is a very important step to us. Mapping out the process is something very beneficial because as we do this, we start to ask ourselves, why are we doing it this way? And how can we exceed expectations? So from there, we can develop our KPIs, key performance indicators. And a lot of this sounds kind of overwhelming or complex, but key performance indicators could be a simple thing. Does this save time for our individuals? Does it make their life better? Are our foremen only working 40 hours a week rather than 80 hours a week? So those KPIs really help us understand how are we bettering our projects through our processes and improvement. Down to how are we collaborating? So again, KPIs, how are we taking antiquated processes and procedures and improving on them? So integrating, making things more autonomous, getting rid of those extra clicks or checks or copying and paste that saves people time and effort. Then finally, we select our technology. So where we start is really understanding what technology and tools do we currently have. I really like to say that's probably the most underutilized step. So really taking a step back and understanding your environment. And there's a couple of things that you have to understand in your environment. There's your business solutions. And what I like to say business solutions are, I think there's somebody ask a question. Something that, sorry, I saw a chat pop up and threw me off. Something that's underutilized is the business solution. So what are you guys using as your business solution? There's G Suite. People are using the Office 365 platform, the general Microsoft tools on your computer. So really understanding those solutions and really what you're paying for right now. Because 9 times out of 10, you're underutilizing what you have at your disposal. And really investing into those tools and understanding that extra 30% that you're not using can really solve a lot of your problems. Then down to really, are you computer literate? Is this something that we should be taking on? Is this a solution that we can adopt? Do we understand this? And this is something that's going to provide value to our organization or our individuals? Or are we just taking a shot in the dark? These are things that, again, KPIs and core metrics, you can start to map out, and I'll show you that later in the presentation, of how we can assign value to these things. And then finally, how to select solutions or tools. So really understanding, I like to say the construction industry right now, especially when it comes to technology, somewhat like a used car salesman. And why I say that is, I'll give you a good horror story. I will say it's October, Halloween's coming up. While ago, we were in conversations to get a ERP, an enterprise solution. An ERP is your solution that you're doing all your cost management, your contracts, your databases, and things of that nature. And we were aligning with the vendor. We had a solution. They were selling us that solution really hard. And then all of a sudden, that vendor acquired another solution, and they flipped and said, well, actually, you should use this solution. So we kind of went back at them. We're like, but your previous solution was the answer to everything and the answer to all of our problems. They say, well, this one's better. So I like to say, take salesmen with a grain of salt. One trick that I always use if I'm ever at a conference or an event, and somebody likes to say they could do things with models, is I carry around a little flash drive. And on that flash drive, I'll have a couple things. I'll have a couple of 3D models. I'll have some point clouds from a laser scan. I'll have some photogrammetry models from a drone flight, and I'll hand them that flash drive and say, here you go, test my information. Because again, they're showing you things that are in controlled environments. So take salesmen with a grain of salt. They're pushers. They're trying to get you to understand their solution and just buy it at the end of the day. Before we move on, are there any questions thus far? There are a couple things in the chat. I just wanted to open that up really quickly and see if there was any questions in the chat.
No, Dan, those were more so just comments or
Okay.
conversations.
So where I'm going to go into next is kind of the key aspects, plug and paste, innovation, technology, software, whatever you want into the title of this, because it all boils down to, again, people, process, and technology. So really, again, it's starting with the culture. What are the needs of your company? What are the needs of your individuals? Because if you're not addressing that and you're just bringing technology in for the technology's sake, it won't be successful. Culture is the core to anything that we do, whether it's safety, whether it's quality, whether it's technology adoption. Does our culture align with what we're trying to achieve? Next is going again into the process, those capabilities. Can we understand this? Can we work our people and the process together? Then understanding the structure that we need to put into play. This goes back into that process management. So do we have the right people in the right places? Will we be successful at that? Then finally, kind of the strategy, again, choice between do we do this click? Do we not do this click? How do we address this process and this procedure? So this is where I'm going to go into somewhat of the managing of the madness. At the Walsh Group, we have probably about 1,000 different tools and pieces of software. Some of those are diverse by vendor. So if you've ever used an Autodesk product, Autodesk has probably 30 or 40 different pieces of software. So defining that as kind of the metric, again, we have about anywhere from 800 to 1,000. So it's a lot for our IT to manage. Smaller businesses don't need that. Personally, our business doesn't need that. A lot of the tools have kind of commingled over time before we've really set up our process and procedures. So moving in, there's really 6 steps for adopting technology. So again, I mentioned identifying the needs and governance, inventory application. So inventorying what you guys have and what you're using currently. Assessing the business value and technical fit. So this goes to kind of that people process and where it fits within the organization. Assessing your total cost, then scoring the application. And scoring the application is what I mentioned earlier about KPIs. Is this something that we can even feasibly use within our organization? And then finally, determining that application placement. That application placement is important because something we might purchase on, for example, RPM, might not work on another project due to the needs, security needs, and compliance needs of that project. So I like to show this. This is kind of like a quick visual of the different things that we align to our process. And again, this seems like a lot of information. There's 4 of us that do this for our entire organization. And again, volunteered. We have a lot of voluntold jobs within our organization, jack of all trades, like I said, master of none. And it's something that we have to do because of the way that the industry is evolving and changing. A couple of years ago, technology was just something that you had on projects. Now it's a risk reward. You hear of companies where they're getting attacked maliciously from ransomware and outside vendors. So security, compliance, governance is something very important. So starting on identifying the needs and setting your governance. So really, what's the scope? What are you guys trying to do? What are you trying to accomplish? For example, I heard there was a couple of people on here. We had a plumbing outfitter. We had a general contractor on here on this call. If you're looking into the realms of technology, why are you looking into it? What do you think that the technology will bring to your organization? And what are some of the principles that you want for it? So, we want to leverage technology because we want to bring drawings into the field. We want to be able to track checklists. We want to do punch lists, things of that nature. Then understanding your scope. Well, we want to do a, user-based licensing or a project-based licensing. Understanding the requirements. We want to use a iPad versus a Windows versus a cell phone. Then gain insights. So the gain insights is where you work with your subject matter experts on your projects. For smaller outfits or larger outfits, this is something that we got to do across the board. What do you guys need? What is going to bring value to you on your projects, rather than just, again, grabbing a piece of technology and throwing it at the board. So next, it's really inventorying application. So after we've developed that first project, we send out those questionnaires to our stakeholders. This is something that we've done previously. So we have about biannually, we do a full assessment of a lot of our tools. And the reason being is we want to understand, do the new updates of those tools work for you? Is this a vendor we still want to work with? So again, KPIs come back into play, and it's somewhat of a cyclical process. Then from there, we validate the responses. So for example, we utilize BIM 360, PlanGrid, and Procore within our organization. Some of that is because of owner requirements. Some of that is tools that our regional offices selected. So those questionnaires kind of allow us to assign a somewhat net promoter score or a positive, negative remark on those tools, so we can understand where our teams are actually leveraging these tools at, as well as how they feel towards these tools. Is this really bringing value? From there, we can understand how to do training. We can understand where we need to find a new solution. We can understand where our training's failing currently for our applications, as well as it keeps our service catalog up to date. So if anyone needs to know what items out there that they can use, what the prices are, what the pros and cons are based on our actual usage, it's something that's very beneficial to us. Like I mentioned, those 800 pieces of software, there's a list that we have within our organization. So anyone can go in and understand the tools at our disposal and how people feel and how they utilize those tools. So, whoops. So publishing the service catalog is something that it's tough because there's a lot of information that we're collecting in these questionnaires and these things. So where we keep it simple is the basic information we need to be successful on this. You know, what is it? The description of the item, service categories, purchase price, the business and technical requirements. And the business technical requirements are really those governance rules that we set up at first. What is the purpose of this tool and why are we using it? So anyone can go in and understand this is why the business picked this tool. Then down to licensing considerations. And why licensing considerations is on there is pricing can be very interesting based on what type of tool you're using. A lot of people are going towards a SaaS solution, which is software as a service, meaning you go online, you pay a vendor a monthly fee, and you get a license, versus a lump sum where you pay them a lump sum, you get unlimited access to the solution. You can have multiple people on it. You can have external collaborators, so on and so forth. And then finally, advice recommendations for using the service. And this helps twofold. One for our individuals out in the field and one for our IT staff that are constantly inundated with questions on this. Are there any questions or anything thus far? Want to make sure I'm not rushing through this or overwhelming anyone.
No questions in the chat box either. I think we're good.
Okay, so moving on. So assessing the business value and technical fit. Again, you might be asking, why does this come after the inventory? And again, inventory is everything that we have at our disposal currently. So assessing the business value and technical fit is something that we do on our projects. So every project is somewhat of a dynamic project. Each project will have a business value. They'll also have that technical fit of how these solutions are going to work. So we're going to understand, again, application dependencies. So as I mentioned for RPM, the owner's using eBuilder. Our designers are using multiple different solutions. The owner has a deliverable that we have to deliver on. So understanding how those applications are all going to tie together. So at the end of the project, it makes it easier for our teams to turn things over, as well as meeting those contract requirements. And then understanding application duplication. This is the biggest crutch in our industry right now. Double, triple, quadruple data entry. So entering one into our ERP solution, which is CMIC, then again into BIM 360, which is our field management solution, then again into the owner's system, then again into the designer system. Application duplication is the bane of a project engineer's existence. That was the bane of my existence when I was a project engineer, really repeating redundant processes and procedures. So there's a lot in the industry right now that can help solve that issue. There's developers that can develop things for you. There's iPaaS vendors who will actually go out and code these solutions from one end to another that'll copy and paste things on a one-to-one transition. So if you have a description in one software, they'll copy that description and put it in another software. As well as there's iPaaS solutions, and iPaaS is integration platform as a service. So just like SaaS, iPaaS is another solution out there where you could go online, you can build out these connections. A couple of those out there that are utilized by our organization is Dell Boomi, Workato, that's spelled Work-A-T-O, W-O-R-K-A-T-O. And what those solutions do is it allows less technical people to go in and build out these solutions that'll reduce duplication. So rather than having a project engineer going in and copying and pasting and copying and pasting, these services will go in and do a lot of those tedious take care of those tedious problems and automate that so we can focus on more critical work and things of that nature. So again, reviewing the business and value fit, what is the effectiveness of the solution? Is it mission critical? What's the utilization, complexity such as duplication, and usability? Those are kind of the 4 or 5 areas that you really want to understand when you're going into this review of business and value and technical fit. So again, I mentioned earlier on, there's a lot of questions to access and ask when you're going through all this. So what are the problems the application designed to address? What are the business process? When was the application developed? How do we use the application? What are the solutions? These are all questions that you guys can use as your database. You don't have to answer all these questions. As I scroll through this, there's a lot of questions to ask when kind of going through these business and governance sets. These are just getting you in the mindset of where we sit as an organization, the questions that we tend to ask. Do we ask all these questions on every product? Absolutely not. But it kind of gets you in that mindset of less of that used car salesman mentality of just buying a solution and tossing it out there to really being cognizant of what you're trying to do and what you're trying to purchase and develop within your organization. So total cost of ownership. So what we like to do on our products is we want to understand our current state and our total cost of ownership and identifying outliers and compare application in our inventory. So what I mean by outliers, if we have a current product, that is whether it's being retired or something that we no longer think fits our organizational needs, we need to understand what is the cost of that solution and what's the cost of replacing it. So the cost of that solution is really the software, the hardware, the full-time employees that help maintain and manage it, to the IT staff. Now, pivoting off of that, it's not as easy as just flipping a light switch and that solution's off. It's understanding, what do we need to archive? What do we need to save? In the future, if we need to access this archive, what do we need to do to that? Do we need to build some sort of solution? So total cost of ownership is another place that people somewhat forget. Just because we bought a tool from the internet and we only give them our credit card and now we can use it, there's a lot that goes into the ownership of these tools. A solution that's out there that's widely utilized by contractors is PlanGrid. PlanGrid is a great tool. You put in your credit card information online, you buy a license, and you're off to the races. We see it a little bit differently. You put your credit card information in online, you purchase the tool, then we need somebody that's administrating the admin console, adding licenses, removing licenses, auditing the tool to make sure that we don't have anyone on the solution that is no longer within our organization, making sure that we don't have any non-compliant solution or software, drawings or documents on there that are safety and security compliance. So there's a lot that goes into total cost and ownership. Again, a lot of information on here. Don't want to be the boogeyman, but these are a lot of the things that we look at when we're trying to understand the total cost of ownership. So if somebody comes out you and say, our software is only $500, well, do you have the computers to run the software? Do you have the iPads to run it? Do you do a Wi-Fi iPad versus a cellular iPad? Do you need a server? Do you need a backup? So on and so forth. Time and time again, people forget about the total cost of ownership, as well as, again, what happens when you need to retire these software. These are all things that we take into consideration when we're going through these massive endeavors of purchasing tools, allocating tools, and using tools. Then finally, a little bit easier, we score the application. So this is where you and your organization, it's good to develop a consistent methodology for scoring applications. What we typically do is a 1 to 5. And that 1 to 5 is a simple engagement. And I'll show you an example of this after the fact of how to score across different variables. For example, are we computer savvy or are we culturally inept to utilize this tool? And you can score yourself 1 to 5 very easily. And I'll show you that here as a sample later on. So, and then finally, determining application placement. So we like to group applications by scores. So again, I said we do those questionnaires earlier on. We do that about biannually. So we can kind of put everything on a even playing field and understand, all right, if these 5 tools all do submittals, what's the score of each one of these tools? Then from there, we give them our total cost of ownership. So not just the licensing, the full scope of what it's going to cost that project to own, effectively manage, and even archive those solutions, as well as understanding different ways to host and manage our tools. So at the end of the day, can we host our own tools? A lot of you might be scratching your head. The cloud is the way to go right now. We actually have a hybrid approach to that. We have a lot of on-prem solutions, meaning we have massive server banks within our offices across the US. We also have remote servers on our projects, but we also use cloud computing for a lot of those things as well. So we have if we have a project that's in the middle of Idaho that doesn't have great internet service, we'll typically give them a server on their project to run all their applications from. But we have a cloud solution that'll back up all those things on a slow trickled network. I like to say it's the Amtrak internet. If you've ever ridden the Amtrak before, sometimes you have an amazing internet and sometimes you have terrible internet. So we like to take into consideration what are the benefits and what are the pros and cons of doing all that stuff by coming up with those approach. And then again, finally, what is the migration strategy and what is your change management plan? So again, that light switch scenario, it's not as easy just flipping the switch. How are we going to migrate and move our teams from one solution to another? I know our PM, the CTA leveraged eBuilder on that project, and it was one of the first times that they were doing it on a massive deployment like this. So they collaborated very closely with eBuilder to deploy on the project, make sure a lot of the processes were aligned with their people and the procedures, as well as the contract requirements that we have to work in those environments. So going into some of these scenarios, these are, again, where we like to score and understand the business value versus the technical fit. So where we like to kind of understand this, as we go through this grading rubric, you can see in the bottom left quadrant, if it does not provide a business value and the technical fit is no longer there, it's time to remove it. Anything on the left of that, if the business value is lower or diminished, maybe it's time to review and start to understand where we can move it forward. Bottom right quadrant, again, based on the scoring metrics, it might provide a great business value, but the technical fit doesn't fit. So how are we actually going to use this? Are we ready to use this? Can we even provide value to this? That's where we start to look internally and start to renovate or innovate on our process and procedures. So if the business value is there, but the technical fit is there, that's when it's time to maybe just step on the brakes a little bit. Maybe we need to change culturally. Maybe we need to have a strategic hire that's going to master this so our technical fit moves up. So where we like to sit is above that 50%, both on the business value and the technical fit. We want to make sure there's somewhat of a risk reward. We're no longer using antiquated methodologies because really at the end of the day, it's costing us money to be in that lower left quadrant. We always want to make money. We always want to be more streamlined and more autonomous. And we want to be in that upper right quadrant 90% of the time. Does that always happen? No. Sometimes it's driven by contract requirements, owner requirements, or the type of work that we need to perform. Again, this is where a lot of people don't understand, again, where I was talking about total cost of ownership. So at the beginning of any state, it's very scary because planning, migration, and reskilling, again, like I mentioned, strategic hires, installing servers, hosting solutions, migrating and archiving things, bringing developers on, the initial cost is always going to be higher than what you're paying. But over time, the future state, you're going to see a reduction in time and a decrease in costs, driving more profitability in how you adapt and how you move towards the future. So this is the curve that I like to show people because it is scary. You need to have that cultural buy-in to understand it's going to take time and effort and money at times to really change our current operations to make us more profitable and make us better in the future. So again, back to the earlier slide where I was showing you all those different solutions, venture capital products, things are ever evolving. This is kind of our little funnel of management. So where I mentioned earlier on was we have our construction technology forum. Our construction technology forum sits more towards the left of this. They ideate, they talk about ideas, they understand the ideas. Then those ideas really go into our scoping and discovery. Again, somewhat of that governance and understanding. So you can see how things slowly trickle down to the actual concept launch. What is our business state? What is the development? We like to sit in this funnel because it allows us to be very entrepreneurial on the left end, but very effective on the right end. So that once we launch a product, we could be cyclical in this process that, again, the next ideation is coming on in. Right now, we have a couple different major pilots in our corporation, but it's taken us about 3 years to get these pilots up and running. Walsh is a pretty big ship, and sometimes it's hard to steer ships. So ideation is a fun environment to live in, but the practicality of that concept to launch is where you really need to think about when it comes to technology. So here's areas where I like to chat with people and kind of give scenarios. So these innovation boards are really good, simple examples for each business to really ideate. And this can be anywhere from technology to a new business sector, to a new profit market, to a new market that you guys want to enter. So exploring is where you kind of understand. You're going on those fact finding, you're gaining insights, who in our group can kind of orchestrate this, what we need to do, and existing data. Again, I think you guys will get these PowerPoints, but this simple scenario is something that's good to map out. It's good to kind of, if you guys are ever in business planning, to kind of ideate through this process and really mark up these factors. And it helps you drive into the final stages of what do I need to do? So I like KPIs because it kind of holds your feet to the flame of this is the metric for a success versus a failure. And one thing to note on KPIs is it's not always going to be quantitative. It's not always going to be a 1 or 0. Qualitative is a sufficient API. I love to hear a project manager, superintendent, or project engineer saying, I love that tool. It saved me time and it got me home earlier to see my family. That in itself is a gold star. I think that technology is great. If that can happen every single time, I don't care what the quantitative metric is, because we're making the life of that individual better. So again, we're going back to our core principles being the employer of choice. Does anyone have any questions on this or thoughts on this? I think it's a great little thing to keep in your back pocket when you're ideating towards technology and business practices. Nothing in the chat. Okay, I'll move on. Then finally, as you guys decide to implement, this is kind of that planning matrix that I just showed you about the cost. Develop a plan. Don't just say we're going to use PlanGrid, we're going to use Bentley, we're going to use Autodesk. Come up with a plan of how you're going to utilize those tools, what those procedures are. These in itself is kind of your core metrics. Did we meet our deliverables? Are we meeting cost intervals? Are we meeting our obligations that we need to be successful in the implementation of these tools and procedures? Having these as part of your technology stack is something very important. Then finally, this is where I like to do that 1 through 5. So scoring again from your organization. Simply on the left-hand side, these are kind of the main areas that I like to score. I don't like anything under typically an average of a 5, or sorry, under an average of a 3. So technology maturity. You as an organization, are you technology mature enough, or an individual or a project, are you technology mature enough to adopt this? If you are, give yourself a 5, that very large. Quality management. Do you have the ability to manage these things successfully? Small. Why I like this little matrix is it's a very easy checksum to understand, can we even do this? Is this something that we should utilize? So going back to that matrix of the 4 different quadrants, once you get your risk assessment and understand all this, you can start to understand where you fit on that. Is the technical fit there? Is the business value there? So I kind of ran through this a little fast. It was about an hour. As you saw, I did not discuss any technology, any things that we utilize. What I like to do is keep an open forum, talk about what are processes and procedures behind that. And I like to have an open Q&A where you guys can ask us about our tools, ask us about our technology, where our adoptions are. Like I said, earlier on, the professor talking for an hour, I get excited about this stuff, but I know it can be very technical and daunting. But it puts you in the mindset, whether you're a massive organization or a small organization, it helps you determine where you guys should be at when you're adopting technology or utilizing your own technology. So I will leave it at that. Thank you for allowing me to present. I apologize if that was a lot of information. I know it's daunting to me, and I sometimes put myself to sleep. That's why I don't do safety orientations on projects anymore in the morning, because I was told I put people to sleep routinely on the projects. So
now, this was really good information. Any questions or thoughts or comments, or just sharing your own experiences?
And it doesn't have to be about the presentation. It could be about your organization, a solution that you guys are trying to look at. Like I said, we probably have everything and anything that's out in the construction industry either looked at or utilizing within our organization right now.
How do I, quote unquote, like view myself to see what it is, what technology I should use for my business?
So again, where I mentioned it's that governance. What are you trying to do? So I believe that was Forrest. That was
yes, sir. Question? That's my name. So let's just say, for example, I want to focus on either, let's say, kitchens and baths or just flooring.
Okay, so really, it's not necessarily on the scope of work. It's understanding the scope of what you're trying to achieve. So if you're trying to track on the estimating side. So really coming up with what is a estimating solution that I need? Do I want to track quantities? Do I want a solution that's going to be able to track quantities and do takeoffs? Do I want a solution that's going to be able to get bid solicitation or submit solicitation, so on and so forth? It's really kind of going down to more of that individual thing. But on the flip side, if you're looking at more towards punch listing and tracking out in the field, it's developing that questionnaire, kind of that governance. All right, I want something that is going to be able to manage my documents, share my documents with my personnel in the field, manage it on an iPad or a Windows tablet, or even a cell phone. So really scoping all those things out and then going to the vendors. There's a lot of vendors out there for a solution like field management. Some of the top vendors out there are the Autodesk BIM 360, Autodesk PlanGrid, FieldWire, There's Procore out there as well right now. There's a lot, but it's starting at what do you want to do? Because again, asking that question, if you're looking at just estimating or estimating and field management or estimating field management and closeout, a lot of those tools can kind of cover all those bases. So that's kind of what I recommend when you're really going out. It's understanding what are you trying to solve and then going to that technology, not just saying PlanGrid looks interesting because I saw it at some conference or something like that. It's really understanding what are you trying to achieve? Because I've said this time and time again to people, I said, really at the end of the day, if we need to, we can build a project off of paper. We've done it for thousands of years. We can continue to do it that way, but is that the best way to do it? And understanding if there is a better way to do it.
Okay, thank you.
Let's see, there's a question here. And again, in the PowerPoint, there are notes at the end of the PowerPoint on different slides. There's one that has 10 simple questions that help you align with asking those 10 simple questions for pilot or software, as well as that huge list of questions to get you in the mindset of when I'm adopting technology, what can I think about? It's just a good thing to iterate and think about as a business, because it focuses not on just the process, it focuses on investment into the technology, cost to the business, value statement to the business, a value proposition to the business. So just like in your business, you create a business plan, you're almost creating a business plan for the technology. So I see there's a question. Do you have a regular supplier of high quality photographic and construction site worthy cinematic equipment besides the drones and perhaps helmet cams? We don't have a vendor. COVID actually was pretty interesting. You saw a massive investment into 360 cameras, 360 degree cameras. They actually flew off the shelf. You couldn't buy them. They were on back order left and right. So we have a lot within our organization. Sometimes project engineers like to just buy a cheap Nikon camera. We're starting to standardize that 360 photos are somewhat the way to go. And with 360 photography, we don't have a end all be all. And the reason behind that is there's pricing discretionary things that come into play, but there's also software that comes into play. There's tools out there such as Hollow Builder, Struction Site, and OpenSpace. They're 360 degree camera solutions where you can kind of create a virtual walk. So you have somebody go out in the field, put a camera on their hard hat, walk around, and they document the entire site. That gets uploaded and processed into their tool. And then the owner or the architect or whoever can sit at home and walk the job site that day from those 360 degree cameras. Again, added cost. Can a project just go out there and take 360 degree images? Yes, very easily. The cameras nowadays are so advanced. 4K is starting to become the common norm. So really it's a matter of, do we have the storage space to store all these photos? Not necessarily what the type of camera is. Any 360 camera nowadays, whether it's the Ricos, the 1Rs, or like the Garmin Verbs, are fantastic cameras. They have GPS built into them. You can have an application on your cell phone that they sync to. You can save them locally onto a hard drive, a G Suite or something like that, and then open them online very easily. They're just great solutions to have, and it makes it easier. The software that are out there in the industry right now are great as well. I'm going to tout OpenSpace right now, mainly because during COVID, they gave everyone free access to their software. And I like to pride software vendors that are doing that risk. OpenSpace is pretty cool. You can actually buy a 360 camera from them, or you could bring your own 360 camera, and on their website, they say which ones work with their software. But it's a cool solution to try out for free. And it's kind of a no commitment. You don't have to sign on the dotted line and then they make you pay, or they bill you 60 days later and you're unaware of it. But do we have a vendor? No. We have relationships with CDW and things of that nature. We have suppliers across the regions where we buy drones from, but no one really that is kind of our corporate standard, mainly because, again, that's evolving, and it's hard to say this is the camera of choice because that camera next month might be the outdated camera. So it looks like I'm trying to explain the business. What software do you recommend to follow the estimate and final quantities for each project? So there's a couple solutions out there for production tracking. There's some that are actually out there in the field. Rumbix is one that's out there right now where you can do time tracking, T&Ms, you could do production tracking, but there's other solutions like Bluebeam. If you've ever used Bluebeam, Bluebeam has some fancy things where you could do a lot. You could do your initial quantities and takeoffs. You can create custom things within the software. This goes to that technical fit. Within the customization of the software, you can start to do production tracking, in essence, something that was just a PDF reader. So there's a lot there in the industry. That's something that we actually struggle at, is what is the golden best production tracking solution out there? We have a couple out there, down to just having Excel on iPads. If you can standardize and create templates, again, back to that technical fit, you can start to build production tracking. So if you know that over and over again, you're trying to track lineal feet, cubic yardage, so on and so forth, you can start to aggregate an Excel template, standardize it, build some macros in Visual Basics. That sounds pretty technical. YouTube. So it's probably the greatest thing in the construction management industry, can teach you a lot of those things. And there's a lot of people out there in the construction space that will teach you how to do this. We have a project construction technology manager, Pablo Giraldo, on his free time creates free content, posts it to YouTube on how to use Bluebeam. There's people out there that can teach you how to standardize that. So that goes, again, technical fit, and what do you have right now at your disposal? So if your organization has Excel, maybe it's going to YouTube and learning a little bit more advanced functionality in Excel that you can start to build a production tracking where you're doing tracking on your cell phone or you're doing it on an iPad rather than going to somebody else. But then on the flip side, the counter argument, if that technical fit isn't there, maybe it's worth paying someone a couple extra bucks for a Rumbix or a Rake-In or a FieldWire to be able to use their expertise to do field tracking. Does that make sense? Any other questions? Any industry questions? It looks like that's it in the chat.
Dan, I have a question, and you may have covered this already, so forgive me if you have, but I'm thinking for small businesses, not only doing business with CTA, they're doing business with other city, county, state, federal agencies, and private. And each of us all require different platforms or any best practices or just thoughts around how to manage all of the various platforms that we, agencies or organizations, put on to the small or to the firms for the contracting processes.
So that's something that we deal with. We average about 300 projects annually, anywhere from a couple $1 million all the way up to a couple $1 billion. And we have that same exact problem. The DoD, the military work that we do requires us to use their systems and their solution, and they have very strict requirements on cloud solutions. So we can't use our typical solutions on those projects. So being dynamic on our projects is something that we routinely have to do. I, on a daily basis, do technology kickoffs for our projects. So I unfortunately have to read a lot of scopes and solicitations to understand what we can and can't do. So it goes again to that technical fit, understanding what you can and can't do on that project. Some of the solutions that we've evolved in right now is those iPaaS solutions that I mentioned, where you, again, we have an iPaaS solution. So we go in, less technical savvy people can go in and build integrations to remove those duplicate entries. So we can continue to work in our environment and know what we like and know the clicks and checks and buttons that we need to do. And then in the back end, something else is running all that automation and pushing into the owner solution. But to say that that's a solution for everybody, it's not. There's added costs and things like that. The downside to this is things get repeated. And it's unfortunate, and it is an industry-wide issue I sit on a couple industry advisory boards, and it's something tried and true to our heart. We're working with a lot of software vendors right now, trying to amend that issue because it's awful. Having to every different project saying that it's dynamic is it's terrible thinking that in that mindset, but it truly is. Having to reinvent the wheel every single time is one of the worst problems our industry faces right now, but it's something that we take a very holistic approach. What can we do on this project? Where can we bring in automation? But sometimes the answer is just, we got to do it twice. We have to have somebody re-enter it into their system because it doesn't work. They have security and compliance that doesn't allow us to do it. It's an awful answer to give, but that's kind of the heart of the industry right now. There is a glimmer of hope. There's a lot of change coming down the pipeline. Technology has caused this issue, but in essence, it is starting to solve this issue as well. Be patient. I know it's tough. It's something that it's tried and true to me, and it's something that I hope the industry over the next 5 to 10 years starts to improve drastically on.
Yeah, I know agencies, we try to have the conversations of kind of mimicking each other's platform. If the city's using this, we try to do it just to eliminate those particular barriers for the businesses as much as we can. But even within the city, every agency kind of does things a little differently. Dan, I have another question, and I'm not sure if this is even relevant, but we're in COVID, global pandemic. Earlier this season, we had a cybersecurity webinar just to address, hey, everyone's having to move into this virtual space. Some of us were already prepared. Most of us, or many of us, were not. So we had that conversation. So when you think about all the various platforms, that first, I think it was like slide 3 that scared me. And it was like all these different platforms. How do you then manage the cybersecurity component of working with all of these various platforms?
So again, a lot of that goes to somewhat of that mindset. A lot of the questions that I have in that slide deck talk about security and compliance. So there's a lot of things in the industry right now, such as SSO and streamlining people on and off the systems. Cybersecurity is something most of our IT spend is on cybersecurity, mainly because of the type of work we do. That's actually why we have servers on-prem, because we can control that environment. It's hard for something, and it's hard to say, small business invest $5 million in cybersecurity because it is very expensive, and it is a knowledge set that is very particular. But we always will do a minimal threshold. So we have our minimal objectives of this security needs to be able to do this. We need to have some sort of encryption on saving our data. One of the things that we always like to say is the transition of data back and forth. Is it encrypted both in transit and at rest? You don't need to be a data scientist or anything like that to understand yes or no to that. We like it encrypted both in transit and at rest, meaning when we have things stored on our environment and when we send it over the interweb, it's secure, it's protected. So that's one big thing that we like as part of that security. Then down to signing in, simple things like MFA, multi-factor authentication. So when you sign in, you get that annoying text message saying, here's your sign-in code to sign in. It's so annoying. I have to do it every 30 days on my computer, but do it. If any product you have has that, turn that on, because all it takes is somebody that was a previous employee or somebody that hacked a password to go in and ruin your entire day. So simple things like that are just very valuable. Down to talking to people. There's a lot of consultants out there that will give you free advice on cybersecurity. Whether you're a small business or a big company, we rely on outside vendors as well. But there's a lot of people out there that will help you in this. If any of you guys are a part of AGC has their IT forum. They talk a lot about cybersecurity and protection. You don't have to be an IT specialist to go to that. There's a lot of people out there that will help you there. There's just tons of resources out there. So again, you don't need to understand FIPS and FedRAMP compliance and GDPR. The little thing and the little nuances are pretty nice. You know, your MFAs, your encryptions, your security keys, and how things are saved. There's a lot that goes into that, and it's a loaded question. It's probably a whole nother. I could probably get my IT infrastructure guy on here and make your heads explode. But
when you
there's a lot
mentioned the
out there.
DoD, I know that the federal government requires the NIST 171 something, and
Yep.
it's like 130 line items of security.
Exactly. And the federal government doesn't even understand it at times. So it shows you the complexity of kind of where that plays. And again, that goes back to what I was talking about, is the technical fit.
Mhm.
You know, when you read something like that, is this something I can do? Is this something I can understand? Because at the end of the day, it's a risk reward. If you go in there and see something in a specification or solicitation where you're like, I'm not really sure what that is, but I'm going to take a wild guess and try it out. Sometimes you can win big and sometimes you can lose big.
Yeah.
So make sure you're doing your due diligence on those things. Again, whether it's applying for a contract to actually applying for technology, make sure you understand at least a technical level, or bring in somebody technically that can help you on that. My contact information is part of this. If you're interested in more on technology and cybersecurity, I can reach out to my infrastructure guy and get some resources for you guys to look at. But it's a beast.
Awesome. Any other questions, guys, before we let Dan go? Awesome. Well, thank you, Dan. We appreciate the information that you shared. I'll share the presentation with the group, and thank you.
Yeah, thank you for having me. Like I said, my contact information is in there. I'm on LinkedIn. I'm always willing to share. I'm all about collaboration and sharing knowledge and networking and things like that. Feel free to reach out. Even if it's just a simple question of, hey, Dan, what do you think of this software? I'll help you guys give insights and things like that. So again, thanks for everyone for having me. Appreciate your time, and have a great rest of this training. I think the second last course.
Yeah, we're almost done.
One more to the finish line. Thanks, everyone.
All
Take
right, enjoy
care.
your
Stay
evening, Dan.
safe. Stay healthy.
You
Bye.
as well. Awesome. All right, guys, we kind of skipped the break there. I just wanted to allow him to, he was finishing up, so for him to go ahead and wrap up. Good information, lots of information, many different platforms for you all to consider or think about. Some, of course, may be relevant to you, and some and most won't be. But just thinking about what the needs are for your business, for your customers, for the stakeholders, and then aligning it with the appropriate softwares. One thing that I got from Dan is, him just suggesting to talk to people, whether it's consultant or just peers. What are you using? Is it working? What's your feedback? That may save you a lot of time and a lot of money before you overinvest in something that may not work well, or somebody could have saved you from that. So just give that much consideration. I also know, as I mentioned, all of the platforms that we force you all to engage in. So even if it's just as simple as keeping your passwords on the Excel spreadsheet, those second questions, security questions, protect yourself, guys, because literally on a personal level, they're attacking every little thing you get. I'm not sure if you guys keep track of the dark web and how people access your emails. I get all kind of notifications of people trying to access things through the dark web. So just be protective over all of your login information. I know that's nominal compared to all the things that Dan highlighted for us tonight, but it definitely rang a bell, particularly because we're in this global pandemic and things are happening. So next week, week 8, last week, final week, guys, we are almost there. We have getting prepared for future projects with GMA Construction Group. We'll close out next week, and then that following week, we will celebrate you guys' completion of this program with your graduation, same time, 4 to 6 on December 3rd. I think that's that Tuesday. You guys can anticipate receiving the flyer so you can invite guests. We will open it up for the public, for hopefully other prime contractors and other peer DBEs. 1, so that they can hear about the program. 2, so that they can meet and connect with you all, so that they can do business with you. So be prepared for graduation. Much like we do every class, we go one by one with introductions. So I'll send out the agenda for the graduation, but just start preparing for each of you all to have your 60-second kind of introduction. So you want to talk about who you are, of course, your name, business, what you do. You want to talk about any certifications you may have. And of course, because it's a CTA program, if you have done business with CTA, you want to definitely highlight that. And that's on December 3rd. Any questions about that, about week 8 or graduation?
November 3rd, right?
Oh, what did I say? December 3rd? Yes. November 3rd. Thank you, Chanel. Anything else, guys? All right, I'll send out today's presentation, and I'll see you guys next Tuesday. Enjoy your evening. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Bye, Divi.
Jamie,
Mm-hmm.
are we going to take this couple of minutes to meet?
Yep, and that's actually what I meant, Melissa. In those events that we're able to hold on, let me stop recording this. When we end early,